All right, welcome everyone to our 1881 series on the rocks, virtual mixology class, the essence of gin. This is episode 9 in our virtual 1881 series. And tonight we focus on everything gin. So get ready, we're gonna dive in pretty quickly and introduce our mixologist and certified spirit specialist in just a moment. My name is Josh Prue and I'm the director of alumni engagement for the Yukon Foundation. And we're here tonight basically because you asked for more mixology. So what can I say? We're here, we're happy to oblige, and what can I say? We're going to have some fun tonight. So, in what we hope is the first of many, we're going to tackle one of the primary spirits available on the market today that many people find as their favorites. So, stay tuned for more focused mixology classes as we learn about others as Scotch, bourbon, tequila, you name it. We're going to try and find people who are experts in those and bring them right here to you virtually. For those of you who have participated with us in the past during our 1881 virtual events, you know that these events are fun and they're designed to be exciting and social. So, we want you to meet other people. We realize it's hard to do right now, although all the regulations are starting to shift. So hopefully we'll be able to be together in person at some point soon. But we want you to familiarize yourself with the chat function on your toolbar. This is a great place for you to connect with other Huskies from around the globe and share what your favorite cocktails are, what beers you're drinking, what wines, maybe your untapped handle if you're a beer person, maybe your sidecar handle. We'll get into that in just a minute. And perhaps you can even share some of your favorite cocktail recipes along the way in the chat. So go ahead and drop those in. But we also want to know where you're coming from. So where you're logging in from, if you're sitting in front of a fire outside on your deck, let us know you're doing that and where you're dialing in from. We'd love to understand where people are coming in from today. So please drop that in the chat and get us started. So next, as we get into our discussion tonight, we are expecting some questions throughout. So we're asking you to please make sure that you are aware of the Q&A function also on that toolbar down there. If you can keep all of your questions in that specific area, that will be helpful for us and our mixologists today to make sure that we can get to all of those throughout the night. They go in the chat. Sometimes more chat happens and we get to lose them. We want to make sure we can take care of you tonight. So please drop that in there. Lastly, I'm joined by my colleague, Kristen Luger, who will be moderating the chat tonight and here to assist if you have any technical issues that arise. She'll do her best to make sure that we can help. And if not, we'll figure out a way to get you the recording so you can participate at a later time if something should happen. So now jumping right in, will you please join me in welcoming our mixologist this evening, Mr. Chris Kurtz. Let me get him on screen here. Hang on one second. There we go. There's Chris.
Am I there?
Here. There you go. Chris has spent years in the hospitality industry managing food and beverage programs at restaurants, hotels, and resorts from Nashville to Boston. After an epiphany during a 5-month European backpacking venture with his wife, he got out of the industry and has now spent the last 8 years in B2B software marketing to help grow some of Boston's most successful startups, including BevSpot, a food and beverage management software company. And he's gone on to create the world's only home bartending competition, the Home Bar Awards. It has grown in notoriety with over 40,000 followers in just over 3 years. And he also decided to go out there and create an app. So he's the co-founder of Sidecar, which is a cocktail check-in app that launched on both app stores in December. Chris is currently studying as well to finalize that certified spirit specialist certification. And his favorite cocktail is the Boulevardier. So Chris, thank you so much. I think I speak for everybody by saying we're thirsty. Can we get started?
Of course, but not before I bring back this relic of my time at Yukon. This was not in my bio, but if anyone knows the Keystone Effect, we played at Huskies about every 2 weeks or so. And, this is one of those things that you keep for no reason, except for times like these when you get to show it off. So I don't think we're giving away that snowboard anymore.
That's amazing. That's amazing you still have that. Chris, before you even get started, I don't know if you can see the chat because I think the computer's farther away. Just want to give you a heads up as to who we're dialing in from. We've got Glastonbury, Connecticut, Sacramento, California, Sandy Hook, Connecticut with their fire pit, Wilmington, North Carolina, Torrington, Connecticut, Tallahassee, Florida. Let's see, Portland, Connecticut, Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's 88 degrees in Big Blue Country. All right. Cromwell, Canton, Michigan again. We have Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Philadelphia, PA, Atlanta. We have Brazil logged in tonight.
Wow. I just saw Guilford too. I just saw Guilford.
Yeah,
I'm in Guilford.
Right in
I just moved from Boston to Guilford. So I don't know who that is, but we should meet.
Nice. Actually, there are 2 from Sioux Falls in South Dakota. Maybe you guys should connect. Let's see. Durham, North Carolina, Chicago, Cincinnati, Boston. India is logged in tonight. Awesome. Chicago and stores. Look at that. We have people all around the globe tonight tuning in to find out what you got in store for us. So let's get started here.
All right, let's do this.
right.
So do we, are we going over sidecar? Or are we getting into the drinks now?
Let's cover some drinks. We'll cover sidecar in just a minute. We'll start talking about the specific aspects of the different gins we're talking about tonight. So let's get started by, I think everybody wants to know what the order we should probably be thinking about tonight. What are we doing in order here for our drinks?
Let's talk about the order. So the order is important here because we're going to do Clover Club #1, Gin Basil Smash #2, and the Gimlet #3. However, if you want to do the green tea gimlet, which is like a green tea version of it, you're going to want to start infusing that gin with the green tea soon. And I'll show you how to do that. But normally you start with the simplest cocktail first because that's easiest, which would be the gimlet. But we want to give that gin some time to infuse with the green tea. So we'll do that at the end.
Awesome. All right. So you're basically saying, grab some gin, throw that green tea bag in there and get it started.
Yeah, we can do that right now. So
all right.
I got the big bottles of this stuff because I'll go through this in no time. The best way to do this, I got a little cocktail glass because why not? It's fun. You could do 2 ounces. I'm going to do 4 ounces of gin here using the Bombay Sapphire.
To measure out 4, should we be using a jigger or should we be using basically the top of a shaker?
That is an excellent question. So measuring is really important, especially with cocktails. I'm a huge fan of measuring for 2 reasons. One, if you like the drink, you know how to make it again. And number 2, if you don't like the drink, you know what to change. You'll see, we'll get into ratios and measurements later. These are all really important, especially when you're making drinks at home, because the best part about making a drink at home is that you get to make it however the heck you want it. So measuring is really important. You could free pour as much as you want if you feel comfortable with it. If you like the end result, that's perfectly fine. We're not here to judge or anything. It's whatever works best for you. But I'm a huge fan of measuring, just so I can know. So for example, when we're infusing this gin with green tea, I tested this out the other night. I need to know, was 4 ounces enough gin? Was it not too much? Was 1 tea bag enough? So all of this helps me learn a little bit more so that when I get onto classes like this, I am a little bit more confident in what I'm able to do here.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So we're gonna get the tea bag in there. We're gonna set. I'm opting out of the tea bag myself. I actually want to disclose my sins here. I am not a gin fan, Chris. So I'm leaning on you here to teach me what I need to know to become an expert here. I realize that's probably something that I shouldn't disclose, but y'all see me make that face where you taste something, you're just like, I'm afraid that's going to be me tonight.
Yeah, so gin is one of those not controversial, but I think people got into it the wrong way. At UConn, maybe they had Gordon's or something like that, shots of Gordon's gin. I would not recommend that be your gateway into gin by any means. It was probably mine, to be honest, but most people think of gin as like drinking a Christmas tree. And yeah, if you get the wrong one, it tastes a lot like that. And that's because gin is basically vodka, but you're adding a bunch of juniper berries to it. In order for gin to be considered gin, it has to have juniper. They add a bunch of other stuff to it, and we'll talk about other aromatics, but it has to have juniper, and that's what gives it that really fresh, the sort of like Christmas tree piney flavor. But when you make it in cocktails, you're going to dilute some of that flavor. And when we get into different sorts of styles, not all of them are that really dry flavor. You get into some more modern styles where the juniper almost takes a back seat, and you get a lot of citrus and other sorts of flavors. So you're gonna like it.
And if not, I'll fake it till I make it, right?
Exactly.
Really quickly, and a person already thrown in a question here, apparently is in my camp here, never really found a drink in the gin world that they felt comfortable with. Curious question here. They're asking, can they substitute vodka for any of these and have it still come out somewhat similar?
You can, yeah, you can. I mean, the way vodka is created, it's created to remove as many impurities as humanly possible, pretty much. Distillation is removing impurities, and vodka, you'll see like 7 times distilled sometimes, which gives it a really clean taste. Taste is probably the wrong word because you don't really taste a whole lot. And that's okay. What I like about vodka, I don't personally use vodka in cocktails because to me, it doesn't add a flavor to it. If I'm going to be adding something, I like to add some sort of flavor. What I like about vodka though, is you could infuse it with something. Say you want to make like a citron vodka, you could take a bunch of lemon, orange, lime peels and infuse it in the vodka. And then you have a real cocktail ingredient that you can make some funky cocktails with.
Awesome. Okay, cool. That's some good news for our friend who's a vodka fan. So let's get into this. We talked about we were going to do the Clover Club first. What comes after that?
Then we have the gin basil smash.
All right, and we're going to follow that up with the gimlet, right?
That's right. Yep.
All right. So for those of you that are anxious to get started, if you already know how to make them, feel free to jump in, get yourself nice and saturated. We'll get rolling through this, and you can join us along the way. But if you want to know how Chris makes it, stay tuned. We'll get into that. So now, next step here that I know we talked about in advance with some of our prep work, we wanted to talk about the different bar tools we're going to need tonight. So can you walk us through some of the things that we should have in front of us to help make this experience?
Yeah, so we talked about the jigger. Jiggers come in all different shapes and sizes. You have, there you go, so you got it. My personal preference is this sort of graduated jigger. So this goes all the way from 1/4 of an ounce to 2 ounces, all in one jigger. So this allows you to have one piece of equipment, which is great for using and also great for cleaning. You don't have to clean a bunch of different sizes because a lot, like with the style you have, Josh, you might need 2 or 3 different jiggers depending on what sizes you have or what volumes you have. This is a similar one. It's also graduated. This has even milliliters and tablespoons on it. But you could even use like a measuring spoon. If you don't have a jigger, measuring spoon, 2 tablespoons equals an ounce. So that's a good ratio that you can remember.
And then oftentimes shakers even have different measuring capacities as well, depending on which shaker you might have.
Yeah, there's pretty much, they have a tool for everything pretty much these days. So you can find something like that. And speaking of shakers, if I can get this free, whoops, some excess water there from cleaning. So this is called a Boston shaker. I love the tin on tin shaker specifically. A lot of people will use the tin bottom with like a pint glass top, which works. It's perfectly fine. You can see the drink, which is nice, but it doesn't always create the seal that you need. And too many times I've seen just, cocktail go everywhere, which is obviously not what you want. If you get a really good tin on tin shaker, this creates a great seal and you'll be in good shape. And they're also really easy to clean.
All right. So what else here?
So what else? We have these strainers. I got a bunch of strainers here. And this helps remove, these are called Hawthorne strainers specifically. There you go. These help remove any sort of ice. This is going to help remove some of the basil that we're shaking with, the raspberry sort of sludge that we're shaking with for the Clover Club. These are an essential tool if you're going to be shaking any sort of drink. We've got that. We've got our muddler. I don't use this a lot, but it's definitely one of my favorite tools. It's tough to find a substitute for something that has this big of a flat bottom.
That thing's really massive. I was going to say, I got gypped.
There you go. No, I like yours. Yeah, I like yours. It's not about the size, as long as it works for you. So there we go. We got that. And personally, I like a juice press, but I'll show you there you go. Yep. I'll show you a trick on how you don't really need that. Got my paring knife. Don't know where this thing came from, but it sits at my bar because I know I need that all the time. Equipment, I think we may have covered everything. I personally use something called a tea strainer. This is like a secondary way to strain your cocktails. I was with these sort of virtual cocktail classes where we're not able to provide equipment. I don't want to go overboard with having people buy a bunch of things if they're not going to be very into cocktails. But if you are and you plan on getting into cocktails, this is a really nice addition. So as you're pouring through the strainer, you also pour through this, and it's going to catch any of those smaller sort of pieces of basil and raspberry seeds that maybe the other strainer wouldn't get.
That's next on my list. I still haven't built that into my bar yet. This is the one other item that I think that we didn't talk about, if you have a spoon or a bar spoon.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
All right.
So I think we got it all.
Now, should we be using for our glassware here? I know you recommended a few things. You and I were chatting just before we got started here on another little development that we talked about.
Yes. So we'll start with the coupe. This isn't exactly a coupe, but we just moved to Guilford, so I have a ton of glassware in boxes, and I don't know where it is. But this it'll do the same thing as a coupe would. It's got a stem to it. It's got enough volume for the cocktail with the egg white that we're going to be making. And I think I got this just at like a Goodwill or a Savers or something. So that's my cocktail glass for the Clover
Awesome.
Club. The gin basil smash. This is considered a low ball, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes low ball is a little bit curved for a low ball, but we're gonna say it's a low ball for today. And then finally, the little mix up here. So when Josh and I were planning this, in my head, I kept thinking Tom Collins. Tom Collins, we're making the Tom Collins, which is served in a tall highball glass because you add a bunch of club soda to it. We're not making a Tom Collins, we're making a gimlet. But I'm gonna be using something that's sort of in between. We'll fill this with ice. We'll make it work. It doesn't matter. If you have the highball, we'll make it work. This is making drinks at home. You could use whatever the heck you want.
All right. So now, being a former hospitality person myself, and you and I chatted about this, and I'm sure anybody who's been in a kitchen understands the importance of this, right? It's called mise en place, which takes its name from the French term of everything in its place. I'm seeing your bar is set up a certain way. I've got my things kind of set up a little bit more so folks can just see it as well. How should we kind of set ourselves up here?
Yeah, so I've done this enough times where I feel pretty good about this setup. There have been plenty of virtual cocktail classes where I've had to run to the fridge for ice, or I forgot, I already have like my garnish ready, already got the raspberries on the toothpick. These are the sorts of things that, as someone who's presenting, I need to save a little bit of time, be the most efficient that I can be. So you just, as I'm setting up the recipes and the glassware, we had all of this on a piece of paper, and you really just have to run down. Actually, in my head, I picture myself shaking a drink. What do I need to strain it? I'm pouring it into ice. Okay, so I need ice for the drinks. I also need ice for the shaker itself. That has to be prepared. I need my little hand with the peace sign because, that's just essential to any person's bar. But you have to have everything ready. I think one of the barriers to getting into cocktails is it seems like a lot of stuff, but it's just like cooking. If you have everything ready and prepped, the act of actually making a cocktail is very simple. It takes 20 to 30 seconds for most cocktails. It's just the actual preparation of that stuff. So if you can get that down, you'll set yourself up for making some good cocktails.
Awesome. All right. So that being said, where should we start next? I think we were talking a little bit about understanding a little bit more about appreciation of the spirit in the cocktail, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that so that when we go into this tasting, like me, I already have this shred of doubt over me that I'm not going to like the drink going in. So what should we do to make sure that we're fully appreciating what we have in front of us?
So there is, just like sommeliers have, suggestions for sipping wine, there are people who are professional cocktail and spirits tasters who have suggestions for drinking and testing cocktails and spirits. Now, the number one thing that I suggest, I didn't make this up, but this is what people who are in this industry say. If you want to taste a new alcohol, a new spirit, always do it side by side. Pair it with something else that is in the same category. So we have two gins here. We have Bombay Sapphire and we have Hendrix. These are actually pretty different style gins. So what I do if I'm getting into something new is get two glasses, set them up right next to each other. And you always want to start with the smell. Spirits are nice because the warmer the ingredient is, the more those volatile compounds are moving around, and you're going to get a better smell, you're going to get a better taste. So that's a really good way to get that sort of full-bodied flavor of whatever you're tasting. And you may think that gin is all the same, but when you taste them side by side, you're going to realize there are lots of intricacies between these two. So that's what I do. If I'm lucky enough, my wife will be there. She'll set me up with a blind tasting, so I actually don't know what I'm drinking. And this is a really good way to challenge yourself. It's also a good way to kind of challenge your assumptions about what makes a good gin a good gin. It's not always the price tag. It's really what you enjoy drinking, just like it is with cocktails. So when you're tasting this, you want to put it up to your nose, not too close though, because this is really strong stuff. You could actually sort of like burn the sensories on your nose if you get too close to it. So not too close. Sniff with your mouth open. That'll kind of get it throughout the entire olfactory senses. And then because it's strong, again, you just want to give it like a tiny little sip. And that gets your palate ready for the spirit that you're tasting. And then you can give it a few seconds, try it again with a little bit bigger of a sip, move it around your mouth, let it get a little bit warmer in your mouth. And you know, depending on where it is on your tongue, you're going to get different flavors. Some of that bitterness, some of that, you know, the juniper dryness will come through in different places of your mouth.
Folks, I might mute myself. We have two spirits here. I know folks are anxious. I'm seeing that in the chat now. They want to start drinking, but you already talked about coating your palate, so you've done that. You wanted to do a side-by-side. So let's teach people a little bit about what they're getting into tonight, and then we'll jump into the first cocktail so folks can
Sure.
enjoy it.
Sure. So Bombay Sapphire, this is the classic London dry gin. This is going to be packed with juniper. You're going to get that pininess. This isn't like the most dry, astringent gin I've ever had, but you're going to have a lot of that. And to me, this is really good for classic cocktails. It's really good for a gin and tonics. You want some of those flavors to really come through. Hendrix is just a beautiful sort of modern style gin. Juniper takes a little bit of a backseat, and they infuse it with rose petals and cucumber, which gives it this nice, delicate, beautiful, refreshing, like perfect for a summer day sort of gin. And you're not just overwhelmed with juniper in that. So this is that sort of modern or Western style gin, which you know some people refer to it as. And then Bombay Sapphire is classic London dry. There are some other styles. You have Old Tom gin, which is sweetened with sugar. You have some aged gins. There's all sorts of different gins you can get into, but we're starting with some basic ones for today.
All right, so let's get tasting here. So we should be pouring a little bit in each one, right?
That's right.
All right, let's get that going. And as I told folks, they're about to see me make some wincing faces. If anybody's curious, I'm a tequila and a bourbon fan. So which one are you trying first here?
So I've got the Hendrix. Actually, no. Let me do the Bombay Sapphire, because this is going to be the best expression of London dry gin. So I'll start with that.
Best expression of London dry, or best expression coming from me?
Well, a little bit of both. Yeah, I'm looking for the wincy face here.
And we should be smelling, like you said, looking at the color, all those types of things.
Yep. And I mean, gin has a pretty clear color, so there's not too much to it. With like wine or tequilas that are aged, generally you want like a white background so that you can get a true sense of the actual color. Because if you're putting it up to something that's similar in color to what you're drinking, it's going to be hard to kind of decipher the differences there.
So one of the things I just noticed too, and I realize people are starting to want to start making the drinks, so we'll move along quickly and I'll hold my thought. Yeah. Talk about the Hendrix here. That's the next one.
Yep. So this is a more modern style gin. Juniper takes a backseat, like I said, and you can get some of those the rose petal and cucumber in there. So if you want to make a cocktail with cucumber, which is I highly suggest, this is a really good option for that.
Awesome. So let's put a pin in the rest of the descriptions here, and we'll go ahead and we'll get started. It looks like folks are getting a little antsy here and want to get started with mixing. I can't say I blame them. They want to know what you learned those days back at Ted's and Huskies here. So let's get rolling into this first one here, the Clover Club.
Clover Club. Okay, so because this is a cocktail class for people who are just getting into cocktails, normally I would do a raspberry syrup. That takes a little bit of work. I wanted to keep this as simple as possible. So we're going to start with a bunch of raspberries. I get like a handful, you know, if you're at a count, probably be 12 or so. And you're going to throw these into your shaker with nothing else. And then you're going to take your muddler and just really get some juice out of those guys.
All right, start pounding away.
And you're going to see a lot of seeds. Most of those will be filtered out by the strainer. And it kind of comes together as a sludge, so you should be okay. But as I said, like a typical Clover Club, you do raspberry syrup. And you don't get those seeds because you strain it out when you're making the syrup. But we like to keep things simple here.
With the tea strainer that you have, do you tend to catch most of that, or does some still fall through?
That would pretty much catch all of it. The issue with that sometimes is if you have too many seeds, it almost gets stuck. The liquid kind of gets stuck, and you'll wait like a minute just for all of that to get through. All right, so that should be good. Raspberries are very easy to muddle, so no problems there. Then we're going to add our 2 ounces of gin.
Which one are we using here? Are you using Bombay for this one?
This is the Bombay, yep. And I chose the Bombay for this one because this one actually has the most ingredients out of all of them. So I wanted that gin flavor to come through. So you got the 2 ounces of gin. We are going to be doing 3/4 of an ounce of lemon. So you're going to want to cut that lemon. And I suggest rolling the lemon. So if you can roll it, if you have a table to roll it on, that's going to loosen up a lot of the juices inside. And my second trick, once I get this open, I didn't include fork as a tool, but if you kind of prick the lemon with the end of a fork, you're also going to loosen up those membranes, which allows you to get the most juice out of that. So this is, again, 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice here. And a general rule of thumb with lemons, you should get about 2 ounces of lemon juice from one lemon. It's not a science, but if you don't have a jigger, you don't have a way of measuring, it's a good rule of thumb.
Now, if you don't have a press like Chris and I had in front of us as well, this is something that you can definitely throw into your shaker tin and muddle away to get the juice out of, or something.
Yeah, for
similar.
sure. Yeah, right.
I know we didn't include an actual press in our thing, or if you want to use your strength. I know I don't have it, so I'm just using a press.
All right, and then so we've got the 2 ounces of gin, 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice, and we're gonna do 1/2 ounce of simple syrup.
1/2 ounce. Now, if I'm using my jigger here, how am I measuring that
out? Does yours have measurements on it?
It does not. It has one side that I'm assuming, to be honest, would be 1 ounce. The other side looks like 1/2 ounce, if I had to guess. Normally, these are 2 ounce and 1 ounce, right?
Interesting. Yeah, it depends. I actually have I have 3 different jiggers like that have the measurements etched onto them.
Sure.
Now I'm not on screen, but at some point you can just take some tablespoons and kind of measure it out and see what you have. I would guess you have 1 ounce and 1/2 ounce. So let's go with that.
The question was how much? 1/2 ounce again, folks.
1/2 ounce of simple syrup. Yep.
All right.
And I forgot my egg. I knew I was going to forget something. I'll be right back.
While he's doing that, I'll out myself as well. My wife actually just delivered an egg because I did it too. I completely forgot about it. So, folks, while you are tasting away, we do have an exciting update that I can provide to you while we're waiting on Chris here to come back with his egg. We will be having one final 1881 event this fiscal year, so through June. For those of you that are participating in the Yukon Together, our alumni weekend, virtual alumni weekend that we're going to be holding the first week of June, which if I can have my calendar open here, the 4th, 5th, and 6th. So if anybody's interested, we'll be holding a Homebrew 101 class. You can go ahead and you can find that information at our foundation.yukon.edu website. You can go ahead and sign up for that there through the Yukon Together. Chris, I was just outing myself saying my wife actually delivered an egg to me just about 2 minutes ago. That's why I popped off screen, because I did the exact same thing. So I'm right there with you.
I swore I had everything, and then it's always the egg.
We just gave a whole speech on mise en place, and both of us.
I know. That's all right. Next time, Josh. All right. So
question came in really quick, Chris, about the lemon. Does it matter if it's Meyer, Eureka, or something else?
I mean, generally, I've never used a Meyer lemon in a drink before. I believe they're sweeter, so you'd have to try this and maybe cut down on the simple syrup, but not too sure about that.
Got it. The drink's called the Clover Club, folks, that we're making right now.
Correct.
All right.
And then this final edition is going to be an egg white. So I've done this many times, and you may get a little bit of egg yolk in there the first time. That's okay. I've also made drinks with entire eggs. So, I'm not going to kill you, but with the egg white, you basically want to crack this egg in half, and you're going to move that egg yolk between the two sides. And as you're doing it over this shaker, the egg white will start to fall out. And you can wait for me to do it if you want to see how this looks first. Even as I open this egg, the egg white will start to come out. There we go. And it's probably hard for you to see, but now I don't even need to go back into the other side of the egg. I have the egg yolk nicely nestled into that other side of the eggshell right there. So we just have an egg white. All right, now comes the fun part. So with egg whites, there are many different ways to shake drinks with egg whites. There's the dry shake, which is shaking with no ice and then adding ice. There's the reverse dry shake, which is the opposite. I'm going to show you a little trick, which is my favorite because it's the simplest and easiest way to go. So I'm going to take one ice cube here. This is like I guess a 2 by 2 inch ice cube. So if you have smaller cubes, maybe add 2 here. Just going to add that 1 to the shaker. And we're going to shake this until that ice cube is completely diluted. And this is good for a couple reasons. You don't have to worry about straining ice out of it and doing 2 different types of shakes. And also it forces you to shake enough so that you get a good egg white foam, because if you don't shake it enough, it's not going to get that nice frothy head, which we're looking for. So we got that 1 ice cube in mine. How you looking, Josh?
We're in good shape. I'm just grabbing the ice, right. Just cleaning my hands of all the wonderful stuff got all over it from that. Any specific technique we should be employing with our shake? Every time I see a mixologist, they have different ways of shaking.
There's so many different ways. I mean, people shake in front, they shake like that, one-handed. As long as you have a smile on your face, that's my big thing. You just got to smile as you're shaking because we're having fun here. But shaking does a couple things. It dilutes the drink. It incorporates all the ingredients. You always shake citrus ingredients because you really want to get that citrus incorporated into the drink. And then with something like egg white, it's going to get that frothiness that you're looking for. Mine is almost fully diluted here. Doesn't have to be perfect. If you've been shaking this whole time, you're probably good with the egg white. So
this is going in our martini or coupe glass, right?
Exactly. Yep. And don't forget the strainer. This is going to be especially important for this one because you've got all of that raspberry goodness in there. All right. And look at that. I just love the color of clover clubs. And because it's got a lot of junk, you may need to tip it back and then tip it back over. You can see just after doing that, a bunch more came out here. And you might not see that head right when you pour it. Sometimes it takes a little while to kind of settle, almost like a Guinness, and then you'll see that head show up on the top. There we go.
Yeah, now it's starting to show.
Right. And what's cool about this is if you have like Angostura bitters, you could put a few drops on top and draw little designs with a toothpick in there, which is always kind of fun.
Cool way to dress it up.
Yeah, and then if you have a toothpick, or if you just want to throw a couple raspberries on there, I threw 3 raspberries on this toothpick here. I'll put that on top. There we go. Yep. I am going to take a picture of this for Sidecar.
Oh, there it is. Good segue. While you're doing that, taking a picture and throwing it up on Sidecar, we wouldn't be doing our job here by not talking a little bit about an alum's business efforts they're trying to do. So let's taste this drink. Let's see what it's all about, and then tell us a little bit about Sidecar.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Clover Club.
It's very raspberry.
Very raspberry. So I want to hear the thoughts of the non-gin fan here.
All I get is raspberry, so I guess I made a decent drink.
There we go. There we go. Curious to hear the thoughts of the
question came in
people
about
online.
pasteurized egg. I don't think the egg pasteurization matters. Obviously, Chris had a brown egg. I had a white egg. I'm not sure if you want to find a pasteurized one. I mean, that might be a little bit more challenging. But obviously, any type of egg I think would work in this scenario. Yeah,
I've heard that pasteurized doesn't work as well. I've also used like the carton egg whites, and they also don't work as well. It just doesn't froth up as much. But I've drank, I don't know, 40 to 50 drinks with egg whites in them, and I've never had a problem. So, well, we talked about it briefly. The question did come in as well, where somebody's thinking putting raw egg into a drink is kind of an awkward and kind of a gross situation. We talked a little bit about emulsifiers. Talk a little bit about why we do that for our drinks, Chris. Yeah, so I mean, most of it is, well, drinks are all sensory. So number one, you're getting this visual. Every time you get a cocktail, it's not just about the taste. You know, when you go to a cocktail bar, it's about watching the bartender and seeing what the drink looks like. I mean, if this drink was clear, it just wouldn't be the same. There's something about that red, the red color to it. And egg white adds another visual aspect. It's just beautiful, and also adds from a texture perspective. You're adding this sort of foaminess to this light cloud of goodness on top of the drink. To me, it's almost like a velvety layer. And egg whites also act as a filtering agent to some degree. So it actually filters impurities. You can filter. I filtered whiskey with egg white. I know it sounds really weird, but there are some really old classic ways of filtering using egg white. So it kind of has all those properties and improves the drink.
Well, it filtered the taste of gin for me and made it enjoyable. So
there we go. All right.
For those of my fellow not so fan of gin, there's a good opportunity here if that's a drink you want to try. So I'm seeing folks are saying that it's tasty, it's nice, great. A couple of questions out here that came in as a result as well. Let's see, liber syrup. Any recommendations or had any experience with liber syrup?
Liber syrup. Can you spell that? I'm not sure.
Liber.
I don't know. Is that I don't know if it's a brand or a type of fruit. I've honestly never heard of that before.
Lisa, if you're out there and want to give us some further detail, I appreciate the link here, but if you can give us a little bit more, that'd be awesome. Is there any other alternative, healthier alternative to simple syrup, honey, agave nectar, anything like that can be substituted?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of keto accounts on Instagram that will use like a stevia sugar. So they'll make like low carb sugars and no sugar, no added sugars, whatever you want to call it, sweeteners. You could definitely make simple syrup that way. And you could also go lighter on the syrup. I mean, there's a lot of sugar in this drink because you have the raspberries and the simple syrup. So you can go, whatever you like from a flavor perspective, you could definitely do that. But yeah, you can find lower calorie, lower carb sugars out there too.
Looks like liber syrup is a fig version, so that's something to explore.
Fig version, interesting. I haven't worked with fig too much, but that sounds very interesting.
So, Chris, we talked a little bit about it while we're prepping ourselves. We'll start clearing some of these things out of the way. Can you talk a little bit about sidecars? We're kind of getting set for the next one here.
I can, yeah. So I'm a huge data person, and I also have cocktails. And I realized I was checking in beers on Untapped and wines on Vivino. I love to just keep track of everything. Like if I'm at a store and I want to see what I've tried before, what sort of styles I like, varietals and wine, I can pull up the app and instantly see that. And then I realized there was nothing like that for cocktails. So my friends and I, we ended up designing and putting together this app. Cocktails are much more complicated than wines and beer because they're not scannable. So we had to figure out a way to get all those ingredients on the app. And basic premise is you take a photo of a drink. You could be at home or at a cocktail bar. You add the ingredients, you rate it, and then you share it with the entire community out there. And it helps them also discover new drinks. So you could search for any number of drinks by type of ingredient. And it's all those recipes are curated by the users and not by us as the developers.
Awesome. All right, let me go through, while you're prepping yourself over there, let me go through some of these questions over here and see if I can provide any answers here. Let's see. Clover Club, how did it get its name? Well, it's funny you say that because Chris and I were talking about this, and I'll jump in here while Chris is getting himself prepped. It actually is a drink that predates Prohibition, and it actually was named after the Philadelphia Men's Club with the same name, which was formerly located at the Bellevue Stratford Hotel, which is South Broad and Walnut Street for those that are familiar. So it was actually a drink that was created there. So it's lived on past Prohibition and moved on into your hearts and into your mouths tonight. So how about that for an answer?
Beautiful.
Right, where did I see that one here? All right. All right, looks like you are pretty prepped for your next one, I think, or is that the gimlet you're checking on?
Just check. Yeah, it's interesting to see this. So if people are doing the green tea gin, it seems like nothing's happening, and then you look back 15 minutes later, and it's all of a sudden green. And which, alcohol is a really good solvent. Whereas if this were just water at room temperature, it would barely have turned color. alcohol, because it's that high alcohol content, it's going to extract a lot of that green tea very quickly.
Very nice. All right, so what are we working on next?
This is going to be the basil gin smash, and we're going to use Hendrix for this one. Before we get to that, we're going to want to start with the basil. So similar setup, we're going to be muddling again. And with basil, Josh, I was confusing it with mint, which you definitely don't want to over muddle because you're going to get way too much bitterness from it. But having tested this drink the other night, you're going to want to muddle this basil as much as you can. So I get a handful. If you guys have a bunch of basil, don't be afraid to throw it all in there. You can't go wrong with putting too much basil in this drink.
All right. I know where I put my basil here. Brought it up with me. There it is. Too many things. So basically throw it all in there.
Throw it all in there, and then you're going to want to start muddling this as well. And really extract those essential oils from the basil. This is going to be what really makes this drink here. I love that smell as you're muddling.
When we're muddling, we should basically be smashing and twisting at the same time, right?
Yeah, so you want to press and also twist, and that's going to get those. I could see a lot of oils in here already, which is what is really going to be flavoring the drink. And I think we realized this was invented in 2008 in Germany. Is that right?
No, I wrote it down with us. Let me double check here. Yep, best new cocktail of 2008, invented in Hamburg, Germany.
There we go.
Kind of taken off since then.
All right, and once you're done muddling, you should see some nice oil at the bottom of your shaker. We're going to add our Hendrix, and I chose Hendrix for this one because this is a nice herbal, summery style drink, and the Hendrix with that cucumber and the rose petal goes really nicely with the basil. So for those watching, we're going to be doing 2 ounces of the Hendrix. So we got 2 ounces of the Hendrix there. We're again going to be doing 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice.
And 3/4, refresh my memory, is that half a lemon? Is that 1 full?
It's, a half a lemon should be about 1 ounce. So basically almost juice almost a half a lemon, and you should be in good shape.
All right.
Depends. I mean, these ones I have are pretty big. They're getting a lot of juice out of them.
Again, if you don't have a juicer, throw that in, muddle that up with your basil as well, so you kind of get that same combination of things going. And then whatever's left over of the rind of your lemon, you might want to just pull that out before you do the shaking.
And we're going to also...
We got our basil. What's next?
So we got the basil. We got 2 ounces of Hendrix, 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice, and 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup.
3/4 of simple.
And you'll notice the lemon juice and the simple syrup are equal parts, so 3/4 of an ounce of both, and the gin is 2 ounces. This is considered like the classic sour ratio. So if you find the smallest whole number there, the ratio is 8 to 3 to 3. You just divide that by 4 to get 1 cocktail's worth of that. But what's cool about that is you can apply that to any sort of sour. So if you wanted to make a tequila sour or a brandy sour, a pisco sour, which is very popular in South America, that ratio is going to get you very far. And you could always switch it up. You can add a little bit more simple syrup if it's not sweet enough. But if you start with that ratio, you'll be in really good shape.
All right.
All right, so we got the basil, the gin, the lemon juice, the simple syrup, and we're going to now add ice. And we're going to be pouring this one into a glass full of ice. So you could do that now if you'd like to.
We had a number of different options here. Is this a highball? Which one is this going to be?
That's right, yeah. So we're doing a low ball for this one. If you want to get really fancy, you could even throw some basil in with the ice as you're putting ice into it, which could be a nice visual. I might even do that myself. Just throw some in there. Basil is great because of the aromatics, but it also adds a visual element if you add it in there. And as we know, cocktails are very visual. That's why they're so popular on Instagram. All right, so we got our ice in the glass. We've got our ice in the shaker. And we're gonna shake this up probably 10 to 15 seconds. With the tin on tin shaker, once you see it start to frost up on the outside, that's basically how you know it's done.
All right.
And again, from a shaker technique perspective, you are aerating the ingredients in there. So that's why I'm kind of not just going up and down, giving it a little bit of a, moving it all over the place. Get that stuff incorporated, especially with the basil in there. And then can't forget to smile when you're shaking, right, Josh?
Couldn't hear a thing you said was shaking. You said, right, Josh, that's all I caught.
You can't forget the smile. The shake, you gotta get
that's right.
the shake smile.
Gotta do the smile. That's right.
All right, I don't know if you can see that on the screen. Maybe you can. It's all frosty over there.
Chris, don't forget, when you smile, you get tips as a bartender, right?
That's right. I know. Very important stuff here. And also, if you can't get your tin off, which happens sometimes, I usually just press the sides, which, well, see, here we go. Press the sides of the tin and you squeeze in, and that lets enough air in, so releases that vacuum seal. And got our strainer. And I'll just show you how this works. I do have the tea strainer. You definitely don't need this, but I talked about it earlier, so I'll show you how to strain using that. We're going to pour it over the fresh ice. And generally, you always want to tip the shaker back at least once and give it another pour. Sometimes there could be, quarter to half an ounce of cocktail still left in that shaker. It's important stuff. You don't want to miss out on that. All right. And your end product should look nice and green. I mean, this is just a beautiful green right here from that basil oil. And if you have any basil left, feel free to top it off the top there. Like I said, this is a very aromatic drink. So if you can double down on those aromatics as you're bringing that drink to your nose and to your mouth, it's going to make for a much better drinking experience. There we go. And I'll take a photo of this one.
Got to make sure that those folks on Sidecar know that the boss is working.
That's right. Perfect. All right, how are we looking, Josh?
Well, here's my effort.
There we go. 1881. Cheers.
Okay. Cheers. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the comment. That drink does not suck, he says.
Oh yeah. See, I muddled more this time around. I didn't get enough basil when I did it like 2 days ago, and this is really coming through now.
I actually get a lot of licorice flavor here from this one.
It's so strange that you say that, because like when you put basil on pasta or something, you're not like really punching out those essential oils, but I almost smelled that when I was muddling. There's like a different characteristic that comes through.
Interesting. Usually I don't love basil in cocktails, but this rules. This one's great, tasty and fragrant. You're getting good comments so far.
All right, and you're getting your input of basil, vegetables, and fruit in the raspberries.
I like the way you think.
And we're going to be drinking some tea too, so you're getting all your food groups here.
Antioxidants and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, folks, if anybody asks, your doctor asks what you did last night, just tell them you drank and ate healthy. That's all.
All right, so anyone at home who is infusing their gin with green tea, it should look something like this. I'm going to take mine out.
Hang on a second. Let me take myself off of here so folks can see what you got working.
Oh, yeah. You should
see the color. You can just see the
color. Let me
color.
hold it out. There we go. Yep, so it should look something like that. All right, and now we're going to do our gimlet. So the gimlet is one of the most classic gin cocktails. It is essentially a gin sour. So sour is a template of drink. Daiquiri is a sour, not the frozen kind, but the kind you would shake up like this. It's the same exact ratio, the same exact style, but you use rum instead of gin. So this is a gin sour. There are pisco sours, the daiquiri, which is a rum sour, and it all comes back to that ratio: 8 to 3 to 3 divided by 4, which we're doing here, equals the 2 ounces of spirit, 3/4 of an ounce of citrus. We're going to be doing limes for this one as a reminder, and then the 3/4 of an ounce of sweetener. So when you're cutting your lime, generally limes have about an ounce of juice in them. You're going to want some sort of garnish for this. I'm going to do a lime wheel for the garnish. So if you're limited on your limes, just remember that before you cut and juice it all, you're going to want something for the garnish as well.
And if we, I know some folks said that they did not have limes, they either forgot or they were trying to substitute. Is there anything you recommend substituting in instead of lime? Because I know that that's a big part of this drink, but I know there's been some alterations and twists along the way through history. So if there's anything you suggest.
Yeah, I mean, so limes and lemons are pretty similar for the most part. Limes actually have more bitterness to them than a lemon does. So you could even benefit. I'd throw some basil in there. If you have some basil with a green tea, might add a little bit of that bitterness that you need. If you have some sort of like Angostura bitters, some orange bitters, maybe just a drop or two of those to get you some of that bitterness that the lime has that the lemon might not.
All right. So you're slicing up your limes right now?
Slicing up my limes, yeah. So getting ready to juice those. We'll start pouring the ingredients here. This one, we're going back. Oh wait, we've got the green tea gin. If you're not using green tea gin, you can use Bombay Sapphire for this one. You could use either one, honestly. I like this because you're gonna get the real expression of the Bombay London Dry. Like this is a classic style gin cocktail. When they came up with this, they were using London Dry gin. So you're gonna get the most true, authentic version of the gimlet. I say that as we put green tea in our gin. So 2 ounces of the green tea gin, if you're using it, or 2 ounces of Bombay Sapphire. No muddling in this one. This one's easy. Okay,
for those that are interested, the gimlet was a spin-off in bars, obviously, of what was originally introduced by the Royal Navy, where they brought like a London Dry style gin along with limes onto their ships to prevent scurvy. So again, we're just making sure you stay out of the doctor's office by keeping you healthy.
That's right.
So
absolutely.
That's all we're doing. But Chris, we're talking about this too. The British are what best known for obviously gin and gin fandom. Where did actually gin really start from?
Yeah, gin originally started, the predecessor is something called Genever, Genever, which is Dutch, Belgian, depending on where you read about it, who you're talking to. And it's very similar to gin in that it's packed with juniper berries, but the base spirit or distillate is actually made from like a malt wine. So it's, in a way, it's more like a whiskey than a gin, just not nearly as aged as like a bourbon would be. So I think the British were over like fighting in the Netherlands, and they tried it and they brought it back to England, and then that's the end of that. It became a craze in London, and a lot of bad gin was made at the time, which is where Old Tom gin comes from. They wanted to sweeten it with things. We could talk for an hour about the history of gin, but it all comes back to the Netherlands and Belgium.
One of the cool things that we talked about too, folks, is that obviously the Dutch had a heavy hand in this, and it was referred to as Dutch courage by the Dutch in the Dutch Independence War by the soldiers when they were told to drink it to keep it as a medicinal purpose. So kind of a cool thing there.
Yeah, that's I mean, bitters are medicinal by nature. I mean, that's how they were invented. Like I said, alcohol is such a good solvent. So if you need to extract any sort of beneficial compounds from an ingredient, alcohol is the way to do it.
Right. All right. All right. So you've added the gin now, 2 ounces. Now you're squeezing some limes, I see.
Yeah, these are the worst limes I think I've ever had in my life. So I'm on my second lime, and I think
Got
maybe the third.
got that juicer over there. Use that thing.
What am I thinking? I gotta do that.
We decided to make this easy for you on screen, remember?
I know. What was I thinking?
So this is 1 full lime we're putting in here, right?
That would be an ounce generally. I mean, unless you're using my limes. It should be fine. I mean, an ounce, 3/4 of an ounce to an ounce, you'll be fine.
What is the actual measurement here? Because you got 2 ounces.
The actual measurement would be 3/4 of an ounce.
Okay.
All right, so I got it. There we go. And then 3/4 of an ounce of our simple syrup. And what I love about these simple style, like sour cocktails, it's a template. It's a template. So you can make this whatever you want. I changed up the gimlet by adding green tea to the gin. You can infuse the gin with other things. You could use different simple syrups. I could have done like a basil simple syrup in here, and it makes it so easy to just make your own and do whatever the heck you want with it.
There you go, Mike. That was one of your questions about basil simple syrup. So perfect.
Yep, and that's one of those things. You got to be careful when you're making it. I mean, look up any recipe, but if you over extract or the water gets too hot, especially with delicate ingredients like basil and plants, you will extract a lot of that bitterness. So you want to be careful with that. So here we go. That's dead simple for the gimlet. It's just 2 ounces of gin, 3/4 of an ounce of lime juice, and 3/4 of an ounce of simple syrup.
Now we're adding ice.
Now we're adding ice, and like I mentioned, I said highball for this one. This is not typically a highball. You can actually pour this into a cocktail glass if you want with no ice, but I'm gonna do ice. I got this little in between a low ball and a highball. This is actually a Campari bottle that has been chopped off and smoothed out that someone sent me. Pretty sweet. Go. And again, we're going to shake this with the ice for about 10-15 seconds. You got a 10-on-10 shaker, you'll see it frost up. And don't forget to smile. Get that frosted goodness. All right, take your Hawthorne strainer, put it on top, and pour over the fresh ice.
So our glass should be full of ice. Got
it. Absolutely, yeah. That's what I'm doing at least. And the reason you pour over fresh ice and not just open pour it is you want to control the dilution in every respect. That's why you add ice after. Like when you're building the drink in the first place, you don't add ice first. That's a common mistake that'll start diluting your drink before you want it to be diluted. So you want it to be the last thing in your shaker, and then you want to use fresh ice because it's not all melted from the shaking. So this is going to stay and dilute a lot slower than had I open poured with the existing ice.
Now, Chris, let me ask you a question. Oftentimes when I'm making, say, something with tequila or other drinks out there, margaritas, whatever you want to do, I find that oftentimes my shaker gets a lot of pressure built up inside. Is there any reason for that?
I don't know the science of that. I mean, I would guess it's just the energy, physics, right? Just
I figured I'd ask them as a mixologist, man. So I don't
know. I just know the ingredients, but yeah, science.
Science. All right, good reason.
Yeah. But no, that's a good question. I'll find that out for next time.
It's all good.
And I garnished with a lime. There you go. You got the wheel. Mine's kind of sitting pretty in there. And before I drink it, you gotta get the photo.
And yours is a little bit darker of a color because you use that green tea infusion.
Yeah, exactly. All right, cheers.
Cheers, everybody.
And the thing about the green tea, if you did that, I tested out the other night. I did the same infusion. It's strange. It just like rounds out the gin. And I'm, just a theory that there are a lot of tannins in tea. And just like with wine, tannins kind of round out the wine. I have a feeling that the tannins round out that gin to make it a little bit smoother. And it turned into a really beautiful drink. This is one of my favorites.
Well, it's simple. It allows you to kind of get that citrus flavor, and I know this is going to be shocking to hear, but that appreciation of what you're actually drinking. And you know what?
Yeah.
I didn't make the face.
All right. Success. That's all I wanted.
Well, it sounds like everybody here is enjoying that. Many people like the green tea infusion there. Kind of adds a nice little compliment to it. One person here has even indicated to us that this might be their favorite drink of the night.
All right. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's got a little bit more nuance than a regular gimlet. And the other thing is you could let this sit. If you had the green tea in there, you could let it sit for a couple hours. And as you do that, it'll start to get a little bit more of that flavor.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, that's all the drinks we have tonight. I know we have some questions here as well that we can kind of formulate here. We've got about 10 minutes or so left in the evening. Somebody's even throwing out there that this is their new summer drink and they're going to be making it all summer. So that's great to hear. So folks, if you have some questions, Chris is sticking around with us for a few more minutes. Couple of comments here and some thoughts, some specifics to some specific drinks that folks are looking to make. They're looking for some expert advice from, as well as some specifics here tied to the drinks we made tonight. So sure. Sioux Falls has unanimously voted Gin Basil Smash is the favorite for them. So that's pretty good to see. Sioux Falls out there doing that. So thank you guys.
All right.
All right. So first question that comes in: can one use the same gin for multiple drinks? And what do you recommend is the most versatile gin out there?
The answer to the question is yes. You can use the same gin for multiple drinks. Don't look at my bar because I have about 10 different gins, but yes, you can use the same gin. And it kind of leads you to the second one, which is what is the most versatile gin? I don't have it with me. I didn't put this one out there. Something like a Citadel. It comes in a blue bottle. Also, when I think of versatile, I think of affordable. Like you don't want something that's too expensive because you want to be able to use it a lot. Citadel is a French gin, very citrus forward, which I love. I love the citrus forward ones. I would personally, depending on where you are, look at a lot of the local gins. I think they understand, at least in the Northeast, that people don't love especially dry gins. So in Boston, we had Short Path Gin, we had Grand 10 was my favorite, and they just pack it with a bunch of other aromatics that you're not used to. So look into some local gins that might be helpful. But Citadel, from a widely distributed one, that's probably my favorite.
Glenn out in Philly is saying Blue Coat Gin is Philadelphia made, so folks that have access to that. And then Bar Hill out of Vermont is tasty. Some recommendations coming through in the chat. And Tracy and a few others have asked some questions about the recipes. Yes, we will get you those recipes in a follow-up email so you can print those out, save them to your favorites folder, whatever you need to do so you can make these again later, so don't worry. I was talking to Chris about this earlier. One little, dad joke, kind of for me, and Chris is another minted father. He has 3 kids. He's the father of, how old are the twins now? 6 weeks?
8 weeks. Went by fast. Yeah.
8-week twins. So he literally just moved into his new house, had twins, and decided to help us out tonight. So if you want to send some congratulations to Chris, throw that into the chat. We'll make sure we get a copy of that. But I was telling him that
my 3 drinks here.
There it is. That's going to get him through the night of screaming children. So I was telling him earlier that, and hopefully folks appreciate this, gin makes you strong, right? So as Jonathan will tell us, gin makes us strong. So as he's telling us right here, right? So it's kind of some fun that we can have.
There it is.
So that being said, going back to some of the questions that we have here, can you recommend a good quality gin for those who don't like gin? Now, obviously, this is kind of in my neck of the woods. Is there something subtle? We have the botanical style, we have the dry. We even have Empress gin that you and I talked about, which for those that are a little bit more exploratory, it's purple. So some fun things there. So what can you recommend for somebody in that neck of the woods?
We talked about this one. Maybe it was we couldn't find the smaller bottles of it, but New Amsterdam is a Dutch style gin and way less pungent and strong on the juniper flavor. It's also very affordable. That's like $25 for like a liter or something like that. So New Amsterdam's a really good place to start. Hendrix is one of my favorite, but I'm so used to drinking gin. Maybe it has more of that juniper backbone than I think. But it's nice because it's got some of those other flavors in there.
Absolutely. Another question here, tied back to the Clover Club. If somebody were to use raspberry syrup, I know we kind of went around and did the fresh route. What would you recommend for raspberry syrup, and how much, I should say, do you recommend for that drink?
Sure, yeah, and that brings me right back to the ratios, the 8 to 3 to 3 ratio. It's divide that by 4 for one cocktail. It's 2 ounces of gin, 3/4 of an ounce of the lemon juice, and 3/4 of an ounce of the raspberry syrup, and that's perfect.
Awesome. All right. If you're doing a tasting of spirits, you talked about this, that at a room temperature concept, they tend to do well and fairly open up fairly well. What do you recommend a general temperature kind of range that somebody should be doing a tasting on?
I would say it's similar to how wine aficionados think about it, like basement temperature. You don't want it too hot. It's going to ruin the experience of the spirit. No one wants to drink like a lukewarm spirit. But think about like cellar temperature, basement temperature, something like, I don't know, 64, 65, somewhere around that range. That's actually where my bottles, I'm lucky enough to have a basement that stays about that. And it'll be cool enough where it's nice to drink, but warm enough where those volatile compounds are still moving around a bunch and you get all those flavors.
Now, one of the things that you and I talked about as well when we were kind of talking about prep work for this, being a whiskey and a bourbon fan myself, oftentimes you will drink things neat, right? Is that something you would recommend here with gin? Is that a drink that you could request at a bar? Or is that something that somebody might look at you and go, trying to put hair on your chest? That kind of terminology? Because that's what I would think.
Well, let's talk about martinis, because the modern martini, I mean, a lot of people do vodka, but the modern way to drink a martini is bone dry. So gin martini bone dry is gin that's shaken up and poured into a glass. Fun fact about martinis is they used to be equal parts gin and dry vermouth. So vastly different drink than what you get today, and some orange bitters. Today, that basically is like, you're talking about gin. It's not neat because you're shaking it with ice, but it's as close as you can get to it. I personally would not order a gin neat at a bar. I definitely prefer it in cocktails, but it's fun to explore when you're at home.
Sure. Appreciate it from the comment that came out here from Susan. Don't worry, you can have all my gin. I will not be taking any from you. And I appreciate the fact that you've named your boat Juniper. I do appreciate that. Question came in. You had mentioned Pisco sours from Peru at one point tonight. Would you have any concern drinking Pisco that has been in decorative Inca God Black containers for 30 plus years? Specific.
That may be the most specific question I've gotten all time. I thought you were just going to say it's been around for 30 years, which is generally okay because it's 40% plus alcohol. I'd want to know what those containers are made of. You have to be careful with glass, like any decanters, whiskey decanters that have been around. Like when you go to a thrift store and get a whiskey decanter, you actually have to be really careful that it was not made with lead, because generally a decanter, you're going to be keeping something in for many years, and that lead will actually seep into the alcohol. So again, I'm not a physics or a science guy.
So know what the container is first.
I definitely figure out what that container is. It doesn't sound like it's glass, but if it's authentic Pisco, like if it came from Peru or Chile, I would say it's okay. But put some sort of disclaimer there that I'm not a qualified person to answer this question.
That's great. The question specifically for you about your preferences. What is your favorite craft gin?
Craft gin. I mentioned Grand 10 out of Boston. They're in this South Boston. What is the name of their? Grand 10 is the distillery. They have a name for the actual freaking gin. I forget what it's called. That's beautiful. It's nicely rounded with citrus and juniper. That's a really good one. I'm looking at. I don't know if I would consider this craft, but this is a sort of modern style. This is Malfi. This is Con Limon, so it's got lemon in it. Also lower juniper flavor profile there. This is a really good one for a summer drink, like a gin and tonic made with Malfi lemon gin. They make a couple others too. I don't know if I have a favorite, but those are some of them. Those are really good. Short Path out of Boston is also really good.
Yeah. Let's see here. We talked about Royal Navy and the gin. Somebody's asking a question here specifically about, do you know anything? I mean, can you talk to the fact of Navy strength gin and what that's all about?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those stories that may or may not be actually true. It's like everything in the cocktail industry is built on lore and legends. Basically what happened was, and I think this might have been Navy strength rum that the story is about, but I imagine it's a very similar story, that they had rations of alcohol. And, you know, as you get farther and farther out to sea, they start to drink through those rations. And the sailors thought that maybe they were watering the rations down. And so Navy strength is, the way they would test it is by trying to light it on fire. And at a certain point, it stops lighting on fire. And I think it's like 52% or something like that. That's why they call it Navy strength, because they were able to, and this is also where proof comes from. They were able to prove that the gin was strong enough for them to drink.
Awesome. No, thank you for getting into that. One of the other things that just came in from our Juniper boat-going friends, we should be trying Cardinal Gin from Southern Artesian Spirits, but it's only available in the Deep South. So I don't know if you've had a chance to have that one yet, but that's a recommendation that came through.
I haven't, but I'm always down to trade spirits. Not that that's ever allowed in the U.S. mail, but find ways.
One question here as well is, you know, every type of spirit has the coup de grace, right? The one that everybody tries to get. It's the one that usually you have to, like you said, trade for, spend more than you want for, that type of concept. What is that in the gin world? What's the one that you say is the ultimate, that's the brass ring that people try to get?
I don't think the gin industry is not like that. If I had to put something on that, I would say Empress Gin is the most sought after gin right now, just because of the visuals, the purple, which is infused with butterfly pea flower, in terms of that purple color. People like it because if you add citrus to it, it actually turns it blue. So there's this sort of like, you know, wow factor to it. It's nothing like the bourbon industry or the Scotch industry, where there are sought after bottles and third markets. Nothing that I've seen, at least. And I have a fair amount of gin bottles, but I would say Empress Gin is probably the closest you'll get to that, but it's widely available, so it's hard to say.
And for those that participated in our mixology class that we did back in December, remember we did a butterfly pea infused beverage, hot toddy, if you remember that we actually had, that was kind of a blue color, and then we added citrus to it and we turned that fuchsia kind of pink along the way. Let's see, what are some alternatives to tea bags to infuse flavors? Anything else you can recommend if somebody wanted to try different infused gin flavors?
Yeah, I mean, citrus peel is a really great starting point. You can't go wrong with that. The only thing is, well, you can go wrong because you don't want too much of the pith. So I prefer the Y peelers. There are two types of peelers. One, when you think of like potatoes, carrots, there's that sort of peeler. And then there's the Y peeler. Yeah, there you go. You got to be careful. As we know, accidents can and have happened. But you just want to get the outer layer of citrus peel. And then you could even dry it out. Dehydrated anything works better for infusions because it loses the moisture when you're infusing something. It goes both ways. So if there's moisture in the ingredients, like a raspberry, that moisture is going to enter into the ingredient that you're infusing it into. So it's actually going to water it down. Not too much of a concern with gin, but you could do some fun things like strawberries, dehydrate some strawberries for some sort of gin strawberry basil smash. That would be a really good one. But again, dehydrate those strawberries first before you do it.
All right, let me see here. Questions here. What gin would you use for the cocktail, The Last Word, if you're familiar with it?
I am. That is one of the all-time classics, Last Word. Good one because it's equal parts, easy to remember. Gin, maraschino liqueur, green chartreuse, and lime juice. For that one, I would do something like a London Dry, something that cuts through that. There are a lot of strong flavors in that. Green chartreuse is 55% alcohol, so it's got a lot of punch. The maraschino liqueur very kind of cloyingly sweet, and you got the lime juice in there. So you want a gin that's really gonna cut through all that noise. And then if you want to, I know we're not talking about bourbon, but if you want a good take on that, there's the Final Ward, developed by Phil Ward of Death & Co. in New York City. You sell bourbon in for the gin and lemon juice for the lime juice. And that's also a really fantastic version of that drink.
Very nice. Folks, if you have any last minute questions, now's the time to throw those out there. We're going to wrap up in just a minute here. But a couple quick facts that Chris and I talked about, we wanted to highlight. I know we talked about where the gimlet was born in terms of the Royal Navy. It is the national spirit of England. And if you believe it or not, England is not the largest consumer of gin in the world. It actually is the Philippines, who consume 43% of the world's gin. So
I was shocked. I was shocked by that.
Something to think about. Just kind of one of those aha moments when you talk about, 007, the gin martinis and everything else. When you go to, if you ever get a chance to go to the Great Britain or the UK, it definitely is one of those standards that you see people drinking and having. Chris, you're getting asked, where do you tend bar? People want to show up.
My house.
Right now, it's a lot of milk cocktails, right?
Yeah, a lot of milk cocktails. Actually, funny enough, I'm a big Reddit guy. I posted a video about my all-time most upvoted Reddit video was I did sort of like cocktail style video, but it was shaking up formula for my 2-year-old son during pandemic when everyone was going crazy and needed some outlet. But yeah, I don't bartend professionally. I think once things settle down with the kids and stuff in a few years, I would love to do a couple weekend shifts somewhere in the Guilford area. But as of right now, my nights are spent with the twins and feeding and trying to sleep.
So we have 2 more questions that I'm going to answer here at this point, or throw out here for you tonight, Chris, and then we'll let you get back to your beautiful family. The first, do you offer private tastings and mixology classes? Because you've got people that want to hire you.
I will. Have I? I have not done that, but I will. I've done plenty of virtual cocktail classes like this with UConn, Boston Globe. I love this stuff. If you couldn't tell, I love doing this stuff. Specifically the Q&A. Like, I love just getting random questions and seeing how far I can take them. But yeah, I'm open for business.
All right. So for those of you that may be interested in Chris's services, to do this, to protect privacy pieces here, send me a direct email and then I'll facilitate an introduction here. Because this is being recorded, we'll make sure that this gets online to our youtube.com/UConn alumni page. So send me a direct email and we will make sure that we get this taken care of so you can get connected to Chris to make sure that you can get those set up for you when he's ready to get that going. And then the last question, I apologize, it was kind of, oh, here it is. Why and how did you get involved in learning about mixology?
Very long story that I'll keep short, but I used to be in hospitality, worked in hotels, restaurants, all that sort of stuff. Anyone who's in Connecticut, Water's Edge in Westbrook, Connecticut, worked there. And I ended up getting out of it. It was a very stressful job, as people who have been there know, and got into marketing and then worked at a company called BevSpot, which serviced the bar industry. And I realized working with all those people, how much I missed that industry. And I ended up getting laid off from that company, which, no one wants to get laid off. That sucks. But it turned into the most positive experience of my life when I realized that I don't need someone else to kind of dictate my fate and what I love to do. So I started an Instagram handle, which led to the Home Bar Awards, which led to Sidecar. And I'm just an eternal student. I love learning about this stuff. All of the questions that I didn't know, I want to go over it right now and find a book and figure it out. But it's the enjoyment of the cocktails, but it's that just the learning and sort of like the lore and legend around it, that there's no way you can know everything about it. And that's exciting to me.
Awesome. Well, this has been a revelation for me that I no longer think that I'm going to completely avoid the gin counter. When I walk into a bar, that rack, I'll actually take a look at it and see if I can try some different things. So I've been changed. I appreciate that, my friend. Appreciate you taking some time with all the chaos going on right now with newborns, moving into a new house and some other things that you've been kind of dealing with. We appreciate everything that you've got going on and what you've been able to bring for us tonight. UConn Nation is giving their thanks to you in the chat here. I know it's farther away for you to see right now, but know that it's there. So we appreciate your time tonight. Any last words or any last tips of the trade that you want to pass along to your fellow Huskies?
Well, I'm just happy to be here. It's nice to be connected with UConn again. It's been a while, and I'm just happy to do this. This has been a blast, and happy to be back in Connecticut. And yeah. Oh, and if I don't know if can I shameless plug like my Instagram handle,
Absolutely.
my personal.
That and how to download Sidecar again.
Yeah. So you can also get this. You can get two Sidecar from my handle. So it's at cocktail_Chris. You can find me there. I love if you have like 5 bottles at your bar and you don't know what to make. Just message me and we'll figure something out. That's always fun. And then Sidecar you can get to by going to getsidecar.app, or it's in my Instagram profile too.
What was the Instagram handle again? I just typed it in the chat. What was the Instagram?
Oh yeah, cocktail_Chris. And Sidecar you can search for it on the app stores, Google Play Store or iOS, or find it in my profile.
Getsidecar.app coming into your chat window right now, folks. All right. Well, on behalf of the UConn Foundation, we want to thank everybody for joining us. To Chris, a huge kudos and thanks for taking some time away from your family to spend with your UConn family. We greatly appreciate that. To all of you at home, we hope to do this again, both virtually and in person soon. And we'll keep folks posted on when we start ramping up our in-person events again soon. But in the meantime, no matter where you are in the world, there's probably a Husky nearby. There's probably a social channel that you can follow, whether that's a regional network you can get involved in here in the United States, or a international ambassador that lives in your country you can get in touch with, because I know we have our international friends joining us tonight. But you always have UConnalumni.com, where you can fall back on UConn Alumni on Facebook, on Instagram, everywhere else you can do that. This is going to be held up on our YouTube page, youtube.com/UConn Alumni, along with all of our other 1881 events. We greatly appreciate all of you tuning in tonight. Chris, again, huge thanks to you. To Kristen for helping us out on the back end, and for all of you participating and drinking along with us. We love you. We'll see you soon. And everybody stay healthy, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks, everyone.